Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of college basketball. And as we continue our run through the Power Six with these conference breakdowns, we reach Tim's conference, the Big Ten. Oh boy. Yeah, Tim's cracking his knuckles because if you like listening to Tim talk, he's going to be talking a lot in this one. So good for me. I won't have to do much. My vocal cords get a rest. But Tim, are you ready to absolutely take over this episode?
Beyond ready. I've been following Big Ten college basketball all year long, specifically for this moment.
God, if you had one chance, one opportunity, would you let it slip? But yeah,
Never.
no, you're definitely more prepared than I am, especially considering you've done Boom Buster Believable on a lot of these teams all season long, including a lot of Purdue recaps, which features most of these teams. So if you want to watch those, go watch those and then come back here. We appreciate it. Thanks. Love you. But let's move on to what other team are we going to talk about first? But Purdue. Tim's Purdue Boilermakers. Why don't you intro this team? What do we got in terms of Purdue? Because we haven't talked about them enough on this channel.
No, I mean, there's no way that you have heard me talk about Purdue basketball almost ever. So let me let you in on a secret. Purdue is good. So they are led by likely and almost certainly back-to-back unanimous National Player of the Year, Zach Edey. Purdue has shown in a lot of ways how they have changed and how they have improved drastically despite being a one seed last year since their embarrassing loss to FDU in the first round of the NCAA tournament last year. With the top offense in the country in terms of offensive efficiency, or they've been right around 1 through 3 for this whole year, and a borderline top 20 defense, Purdue is a matchup nightmare for pretty much any team they face, with a guy like Edey in the center at 7'4", 300, and just how good he is around the rim, combined by three-point shooting all over the floor around them. Purdue is right at the top in the country in terms of three-point shooting as percentage, and they have just completely dominated a lot of teams. Now they've struggled at certain points, but the big difference that I've found is that Purdue has been able to grind out more wins and win more close games, close out more close games than they have in previous years.
And that's the difference between this year's Purdue team and last year's Purdue team. When you look at last year's loss, more specifically, why they lost is because of the lack of the three-point shooting. And now that dimension is completely fixed. Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer are a year older and more experienced. You bring in Lance Jones, and he's been excellent from three as a transfer.
What a difference maker he has been.
Absolutely. And Zach Edey, he is more than just a tall guy that clogs up space. Yes, he does that, but it leads to a lot of rebounds and points. There's got to be some skill involved. And Zach Edey just keeps getting better and better and better every year. He will make some plays on the block where he'll spin out of a double team or do an up and under or make like some spinning acrobatic for his size play. And I'm going like, that is more than just a guy that is large. So when I look at Purdue, the question is, who's going to stop them? And the answer is themselves, because
100%.
it's so tough to escape those demons when they've been chasing you year after year after year. And Tim, as much as you don't want to agree with me on this, I think we can both say they're either going to make a run to the Elite Eight or the Final Four, or they're going to be done in the first weekend. And we're going to be right back here at 4 a.m. doing a video on why your Purdue Boilermakers lost. And quite frankly, I'm okay with it because more content.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Uh-huh.
I can't do it again.
Well, let's pray that Purdue doesn't get in their own way. I mean,
no, I entirely
the
agree.
stars are aligning for them.
With the way that Purdue is made up and the way that they play, if they're playing their best basketball or anything really near it, it's extremely hard for teams to keep up, really. But when they beat themselves, whether it be turnovers, whether it be, illogical, mistakes, if the three ball isn't falling, if they're getting their open shots and just not hitting them, it's different ways that they are beating themselves. They have the talent and they have, the depth all across the floor, and even the veteran presence, where they have all of the pieces that they need. If they don't win this year, or when I say win, I mean make at least a deep run, there is no excuse left in the book other than they simply just don't have it
No, I'm taking it a step further. It's national championship or bust. It
It
is
pretty much
it is
is.
like, don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
Purdue is tired of the
You're never going to
disappointment.
have a team better than
So
this.
are Purdue fans. This is their chance. This is their moment. Will they take advantage of it? And the fun and also scary thing is we have no idea. So that's why you play the game. But a lot of things that you said in the Boom Buster Believable video hold true 2 months later. The time is right now. Can they capitalize? But we got more teams to cover. Next up being the Illinois Fighting Illini. They have another top 5 offense in the country, and they can beat you in a number of ways because they have playmakers all over the floor, such as Terrence Shannon, Marcus Damask, Coleman Hawkins, even Quincy Guerrier can get his. It's going to be a long day for your defense, but this is another one of those teams that scores a lot, but they'll let you get yours. Their defense is not their calling card or their strong suit as well. Their offense makes up for a lot of it because they're versatile, they're athletic, they can make shots all over the floor. And that'll be enough to beat some teams. But if you get into those grit, grindy games where it's a defensive battle, I question Illinois' ability to hang with them in those games. No doubt they'll win in a shootout, but if it goes the other way, it becomes a lot less certain.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there even have been some games this year against what you would call far inferior teams where they have lost shootouts, Penn State being one of them, like a 90-89 game there. So their offense is incredible. Like you said, playmakers everywhere and different styles of playmakers. You talk about a guy like Terrence Shannon Jr. that will just annihilate you one-on-one, hit it from the outside, drive to the basket. Marcus Damask lives in the mid post for his size and his capability. He is way more comfortable in like the mid to low post area than almost any guard that I've seen in the country. Coleman Hawkins, super athletic, can extend it and shoot it, but he also will just he'll eat your big men alive if you sort of a slow, heavy-footed guy. He'll drive you to the basket. But like I said, their defense can be their downfall. Like a lot of these teams, they score the ball like crazy, but they don't often play fantastic defense. And they had a stretch this year where they were playing really bad defense. And Brad Underwood even said this. So he was asking a press conference, like, what's wrong with your defense, right? He said, I don't know. Sometimes, certain things just aren't clicking. But when Illinois is clicking, they can beat literally anyone. They have that good of an offense, and they have such versatile ways of beating you that they are not to be overlooked in any matchup that they're in.
1,000%. I completely agree. When they're on, they're on. When they're not, you know, you can say that about almost any team in the country, but Illinois especially.
Right.
When you have that high of a ceiling and yet at the same time a floor that makes you go, why is this
They
team
are
not
they are
playing better?
very roller coaster-y.
Yeah. Next up, we have Northwestern, who, after having a good year last year, they continue to get better. And you can't talk about Northwestern basketball without mentioning Boo Buie. He is the heart and soul of the program. He bleeds Northwestern purple. Northwestern fans clamor for him to be Naismith National Player of the Year. And to that, I say, shut up. But he is very, very good. Um, he leads the team in scoring. He leads the team in passing. They're a very good shooting team overall, although, side note, Ty Berry being out really, really hurts. You got guys like a Brooks Barnheiser or a Ryan Langborn, but let's be honest, they're not Ty Berry. I mean, Ty Berry is, Boo Buie's like, as to Robin and Batman, Boo Buie's Batman, Ty Berry's Robin. You don't exactly have a bunch of little Robins running around when, you just need that Robin, and nobody's quite like Ty Berry. But, that's not to say that this Northwestern team is completely screwed. They did well with some good wins in the Big Ten. They can hang with the best. However, we'll just see how it plays out on the national stage. That's all.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is figuring out how their offense recovers on a consistent basis, losing a guy and a shooter like Ty Berry. He's a 43% free 3-point shooter. And you saw that sort of issue flare up a little bit in their loss earlier today against Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament. Boo Buie, we know how good he is. Teams know how good he is. You have to defend him. Sometimes There's not that much you can do about it, though. In this game against Wisconsin, they really couldn't. He ends up with 29, but the problem was the other pieces weren't really able to have essentially play their best game and really help him. Brooks Barnhizer ends up with 15, but is 0 for 5 from 3, shoots 3 for 15 from the floor. They are missing that shooter. That doesn't mean that this is going to be the brand of Northwestern basketball you see in every game, but you see essentially what kind of off game they can have when some of the shots aren't falling in some of their other pieces, where they only put up 61. But I still really like this Northwestern team. When you have a team that could shoot that well as a team, shooting just over 39%, they have the ability to beat you in a number of different ways. They play a little small ball big, but they have some guys that are sort of sneaky athletic and sneaky quick as big men that find ways to essentially get around some of your slower footed big men. So they are more of a unique team in the way they play offense, which is why I think some teams can struggle to figure out how you want to defend them. So they made it to the second round last year and barely lost to a really good UCLA team. They're obviously not the exact same team, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're a team that can be overlooked yet again in the NCAA tournament and maybe shock some people.
I think a pretty good analogy to put it in NBA terms, it's like, with the Oklahoma City Thunder, Kevin Durant was going to get his, but they weren't the same team when Russell Westbrook got hurt and tore his ACL. They still made the Western Conference Finals, and they still made a deep run in the postseason.
Just not the same team.
But KD wasn't, and the Thunder weren't the same without Russell Westbrook. Boo Buie and the Wildcats aren't the Wildcats when you don't have Ty Berry there. I mean, you're not going to replace Russell Westbrook with Kendrick Perkins. Not going to happen. I'm sorry, but
Rip paper.
Well, that's just how it is.
No, I completely agree.
I think that just adds a level of variance that we didn't quite see before with Northwestern. Next up, we'll have the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And
I love watching this basketball team.
Oh my goodness, they are the most exciting team in the Big Ten to watch. Look, Purdue basketball's fun, but they're not that fun. Taisei Tominaga and Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary, those guys lead the team. They lead the way. They run, they gun, they shoot. But, when you get them on the road, crazy things can happen. And that's going to be a big part in the NCAA tournament because none of these games are going to be played in Lincoln, Nebraska. I can guarantee you that. You got a fast team, you got a fun team. They can go on runs and jump on you. You look at this game against Indiana where they were neck and neck, and then the Hoosiers fell off, and then the Cornhuskers absolutely curb stomped them. That's the kind of style of play that you get with Nebraska. So that's not even mentioning their defense. Their defense is really good and can shut you down on any given day. So this Nebraska team, watch out.
Yeah, this team is crazy to watch. And you saw just a glimpse of it today. And what I would call an opportunistic and optimistic glimpse today against Indiana. They're playing in Minneapolis for the Big Ten tournament, and they looked fantastic. Obviously, you talked about they were grinding it out a bit early. Keisei took over, started knocking down threes left and right. They got the team going in general. Guys like Rink Mast. And another one that I think that's really overlooked is actually CJ Wilshire off the bench. He has been an elite bench rotation guy for them in terms of adding 3-point shooting and scoring off the bench. He only averages around 8 points per game, but he has had those games where he gets 15, 17 points, and he'll make 3 or 4 threes off the bench. That's part of the reason why they're such a good team shooting team, is because they have guys in the starting lineup and guys that they will bring off the bench and kind of mix throughout those rotations to have guys on the floor that can hit threes at any time. As you saw in their game against Purdue, when they are on, good luck. I mean, they can knock down threes left and right, and that's just so hard for teams to defend. Keisei is kind of like a similar guy in my mind to Boo Buie. If you let him get going, there is little to nothing you can do because they are both such intense and crazy contested shot makers when they are on that they just make that team that much more dangerous regardless of how well the team is playing as a whole. Those guys are guys that can simply take over games and make these teams just completely unpredictable in any given game. Honestly, a little bit of a different style of player. I say a little bit, very different style of player, but I will go as far to say that I would compare Keisei Tominaga as a microwave scorer to a guy like Carson Edwards. He is a guy that can take over the game, and if he is on, will chuck it from anywhere, and he is susceptible
References
to
to
make
Purdue.
6, 7 threes in a game. Honestly, it's just he's the first guy that comes to mind in that kind of score, in an undersized guy that will just shoot it from anywhere. So that alone makes Nebraska a very dangerous team to watch if they're on. But like you said, away from home, if they are off, they can put up a game in the 60s. So it's going to be tough to see, but against Indiana, obviously not a fantastic team, but they put up a really solid performance. We'll see if they're able to keep that going for the rest of the Big Ten tournament and keep that momentum heading into Selection Sunday.
Yeah, if they're rolling, bid stealers, maybe, very likely, could go on a run. Yeah, sure, I can see it. There's
But
always
they are
that
one
level.
stinker. They are one
Yeah,
stinker
they're a
away from
stinker
being like,
away.
what happened?
They're a stinker away, and James Draws is going Nebraska. What happened? How did you lose to
McNeese State?
St.
Maybe.
Peter?
Who knows?
St. Peter's, even though they're not going to be a 9 seed. Second round loss to St. Peter's? I don't know. I'm
Caught
not
me
gonna.
off guard with that one.
Hey, I mean, crazier things have happened. After that, we're going to talk about Wisconsin, who has been on an absolute roller
Talk
coaster of
about
a season.
crazier things have happened.
Dude, up, down, and these Wisconsinites, good thing they drink so much beer because they need it watching Wisconsin basketball. You know, when you watch this team, it starts to make a little bit of sense why Wisconsin is the most drunk state in the country. But, you know, let's talk about the team and not the state. You know, they have some dudes that can give you buckets like Tyler Wall and AJ Storr and Steven Crowell, but some of the usual Wisconsin Badgers that we've seen that have been major factors have not stepped up, such as Chucky Hepburn or Max Klesmit. And when you look at this team, it's like, gosh, you could be so much better. Why aren't you? It's because these pieces just aren't clicking at the same time. And
they
that
are inconsistent. They
that
are
could
unbelievably inconsistent.
that could be their downfall. Inconsistency, although fun and chaotic, is not necessarily conducive to winning basketball all the time.
Yeah, I mean they are back to playing as of right now in their last 2 games and their 2 Big Ten tournament games. They are looking like a solid basketball team once again. They had a great performance against Maryland. They shot the ever living lights out. It was insane. And they had more of a grinded out win against Northwestern earlier today, but they still make no sense to me. I still can't get over the fact that this team started off absolutely insane, getting up to as high as 6th in the country. And then you talk about the wheels falling off. The wheels, the axles, the doors, everything fell off. Like they had no vehicle anymore.
I was going to say,
is that
a car at this point?
They were unidentifiable as the team that they started the year
or
at.
are they just driving a 1910 Model T? I mean, my goodness. And I completely agree, though. When you see this bad Wisconsin, it's almost egregious of like, who are you and what have you done with the Badgers? So for the tournament, are you going to see good Wisconsin? Or are you going to see bad Wisconsin?
They're going to be a hard team for me to pick making a deep run, because that inconsistency really I think has a chance of biting them in the butt.
There's just a lot of variance. It's like starting with Wisconsin, and for the rest of this video, there will be a lot of discussions about the inconsistency and the variance, and for some of these other teams, should they even make the tournament, period?
Welcome to the Big Ten
some of them
this
will.
Year.
It's a little more confusing than in years past. Yeah. And I think that's a pretty good segue to have a discussion, an open discussion about Michigan State. And if you've talked to me in the last week, this Michigan State team, it's a bit confusing. I have questions. I have questions why
and I don't think the Spartans have answers. I gotta be honest.
Why are Michigan State in the tournament right now as it stands? I have absolutely no idea, because although they return, we'll get to that. They return a lot of the same players as last year, and I watched that Michigan State team last year in the tournament against a really powerful Marquette team take it to them. this ain't the same team. This ain't the same squad. This ain't even close. They don't have the wins. Their stars aren't stepping up. Tyson Walker isn't Tyson Walker. Jaden Akins is lying in the weeds here. I mean, as far as I see it, Michigan State will make the tournament on name and brand alone. If it's up to me, they're not in. Not at all. There are teams that are so much more deserving than Michigan State. Like, let me put it this way. When I look at this, Butler is my baseline because that is the team I know best. I think Butler should still be a bubble. They're not going to get in, but they were a bubble team up until the very end. Butler, Michigan State, pound for pound, advantage Butler. It's not close. Better record, better strength of schedule, better
quality wins,
better conference, because the Big East is better than the Big Ten this year, no matter which way you slice it up.
Top to bottom, yes.
No bad losses. Michigan State has a few of those. What are they doing here? Why are they making the tournament? I didn't call for Clemson's complete omission from the tournament. I'm calling for Michigan State's. They shouldn't be in. Period. End of story. I don't care if I'm being too cavalier about this. They shouldn't be in.
And believe it or not, I actually wholeheartedly agree with you, because I've watched a lot of Big Ten play this year, and I've watched Michigan State play a lot. And
they're not good.
They just
and what's gonna piss me off the most is when Michigan State gets into the tournament as a 10 seed, and then suddenly Tom Izzo is a Wizard of March, and then they eventually wind up making the Sweet 16 or Elite 8 because screw me, I guess. Of course they will. And then we're talking about, see, Michigan State was good this whole time, and I'm going to be salty because I've been picking against them the entire... I can see it now. I can see it happening. It's not going to make me a happy camper, and I'm mentally preparing myself for it now. I'm mentally preparing to be disappointed.
I mean, yes, it's definitely a possibility, but I got to be honest, with everything that I've saw, I don't see it. I can see them winning a first round game. I don't see them making it far, specifically because of the fact that you are right. Tyson Walker, very good player, still averaging 18 points a game. But there's a lot more games where he's just been off. And you know, as much as they played a close game with Purdue today, I think it was really a close game because Purdue's offense just wasn't on as much.
Purdue did not play their best game.
Purdue didn't play nearly their best game. In fact,
are you kidding me?
He was the only one that did.
Are you kidding me? Like it was Edey Ball and Edey alone, and that enough was still able to beat Michigan State. But pro Michigan State people and Michigan State fans will look at that and say, hey, we hung with the number 3 team in the country and a team that is fighting for the number 1 overall seed. This is why we should be in.
You really didn't. I got to be honest with everything. No, because everything that you mentioned in terms of quality wins and the strength of schedule, the teams that they beat, the quality of losses that they had. I mean,
well, leave it to box score merchants to push that agenda. It's not going to be us. So
no, so I completely agree with you on this. I think they will get in. I don't think they should. And I'm interested to see what some other people think. But honestly, I think the biggest thing that
bring it, losers. Michigan State shouldn't be in. Fight me, debate me.
The last thing that I have to say about Michigan State is I think the thing that might be their biggest downfall has nothing to do with any of their basketball statistics, how they play, regardless. I think it's their attitude. I think that this team has an attitude of we are better than our record shows, and we are like this team that deserves recognition. There's, there was something going on about a couple of these Michigan State individuals going out on Twitter and Instagram and saying like this kind of like okay bet type of behavior on their
you're not Michigan
snubs. Their snubs from the all Big Ten teams.
You didn't deserve it.
This is not the Tom Izzo led team that I'm used to. They have a lot more personalities, and I think that is going to be their biggest downfall.
This gets me fired up. This gets me fired up because I want all the smoke. I want all the angry Michigan State fans in our comments telling me about how I'm a moron, and I can't wait to tell you I told you so when they're a first round exit. But I also can't wait to be like incredibly wrong when they do end up making that miracle run, because like whatever. But
to be honest, I don't see it.
Well, I don't either, but guess what? March is weird. So is Michigan State. Yeah. Tom Izzo does crazy things, and
believe me, I've seen it.
That haven't we ever? That's just the way things go. Next up, we'll talk about Iowa, who causes a little less controversy. They're not getting by on name brand at all. They're just having a down
They're
year.
just kind of, yeah, this is just not the Iowa team we're used to seeing.
This
Fran
is
McCaffrey is
yeah.
not used to having this type of roster. There's still a team that, you know,
They have their
their
identity.
offense is still really good. There's still a similar identity. They just haven't been able to close out games. I think that's the biggest difference between this Iowa Hawkeyes team and other Iowa teams that have been able to, really step up and make these better records and compete for the Big Ten title. And I think some of it actually comes down to star power. We've seen Iowa Hawkeyes in the last 5-6 years have some really high star power between guys like Garza, and some of those other stars that we've seen come through the system.
So many stars. Luca Garza, the other
I'm forgetting the name of
star,
the
the
brothers.
third star.
What are the brothers?
I'm giving you a hard time. It's irrelevant. Your point still stands because quite frankly, I agree with you, and I think it's going to cause them to miss out on the tournament. And as unfortunate as that is, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And that's all we have to say about that. Next up, we'll talk about Ohio State, who absolutely shot out of nowhere. They were dead as a doornail by early February, and they knew that something needed to change. So they did. They fired Chris Holtmann, and then a really funny thing happened because, of course, they started winning. It started with that win against Purdue, and then they just took off and haven't looked back since, and they've rocketed all the way up into the next four out. But if we had filmed this yesterday, I would be more optimistic, but that is officially derailed with their loss against Illinois, and they came oh so close to doing it.
I really wanted to see them win that
Yeah,
game.
me too. I'm a fan of chaos. I love the underdog team that just comes out of nowhere and,
If they had been able to
shocks the
pull off
world.
a significant Big Ten tournament push
We
while
got a
being a low seed
conversation.
2 years in a row.
We got a
Well, if they had done that
conversation.
2 years in a row, that would have been pretty crazy. But
Yeah.
they just came so close. They won 6 out of their last 7 going into this game, and they gave Illinois a battle. They were able to keep Illinois' offense from going too crazy.
Jamison battle.
Jamison Battle he is that dude. And I got to be honest, as a Purdue fan and facing him at Minnesota for the last couple of years and seeing what he did in that game when we did end up losing to Ohio State there in the middle of February, I'll be glad to see him go. He's one hell of a player, and he is one of those guys that can just light you up at any given opportunity. But they just started playing good basketball too late.
NIT, faux you. And we can say the same about this next team, Indiana, because they're not getting in. They're another team that had a chance entering today. They hadn't been playing well. They were sitting at, I believe, 14-13. And I was told if Indiana wins out and they win a few Big Ten games, that they have a chance with a 10-10 conference record. And I'm like, all right, show me. And then they won out the rest of the regular season.
They started winning.
They started winning. They started playing well. They started clicking, but it was just too little too late. And especially now that they got the break speed off of them by Nebraska, that pretty much just slams the door on the tournament bid. Yeah, sorry, boot it.
This Hoosiers team is it's not what we're used to seeing out of IU. And quite frankly, these last couple of years, they've been kind of up and down. You saw them at least, make a tournament appearance with Mike Woodson last year, and make some noise with the star power they had. But this year,
probably saved Mike Woodson his job. This winning streak did.
Correct, and some people aren't happy about it because that meant that they lost Liam McNeely, who decided to decommit 5-star literally within 24 hours of that announcement. Whether or not that had anything to do with it, that's a different story. We'll probably talk about more of that in the off season.
That's definitely off season material.
Yes, but overall, this was an inside out team that really didn't have their outside. Their guard play has been incredibly suspect this year. Trey Galloway was really the only thing kind of holding it together.
But he's coming back, though. But he's coming back.
He is coming back. But you saw today, Trey Galloway was out for today's game against Nebraska, and they got smacked.
You can't have an inside out team and then have your inside also be your outside. That's not really your inside. I'm talking about Khalil Ware, the 7'1" big man that plays like a guard, that shoots the three ball better than anybody else on the team, but can't body anybody in the middle to save his life. And that inherently is a problem. This is a flawed Indiana team, and their omission from the tournament is going to shock no one. And Tim, I can tell you're so heartbroken about it. Tears are flowing down your face because Indiana isn't good. Boo-hoo.
Wah.
Wah. I don't want to
I don't
hear.
want to hear it.
I don't want to hear it. But guess what? You're hearing it. And that's just kind of how the Big Ten has gone this year. But that's all we got for our Big Ten conference breakdown. If you want more conference breakdowns, we have the rest of the Power Six and some mid-major squads, because mid-majors are fun. And who doesn't love Cinderella stories? If you want to watch Purdue recaps, Tim has a lot of those, as well as Boom Buster Believable. I have a lot of Butler recaps if you want to watch Butler's journey throughout the season, which unfortunately is now over, but yeah, whatever. We're going to keep bringing you college basketball content up until and through the tournament. So it's a blast. We love it. Get ready.
Get ready.
Buckle up. This is March, and it's going to be a fun time. Thank you to everybody who stands with us and watches.
And look out, come Selection Sunday and the days following, the Running the Table Bracket Challenge will be returning.
Absolutely.
So I really
of course.
hope to see. Of course, but just got to let the people know, and I really hope we can get some great turnout there, and maybe someone can dethrone me. I don't know.
Maybe. It's going to be me. But if you want us to talk about anything else, let us know. And until next time, we're out.
Sorry, I didn't make it all the way back around.
Yeah, okay. Sure thing, bud.